Good morning, everyone. My name is Mike Chaplin, professor and head of the Department of Horticulture at Iowa State, welcoming you to this dedication ceremony for the Ryman Gardens. And I'll be serving as your master of ceremonies this morning. Let me ask you a question. Do you like the Ryman Gardens? Well, I certainly agree with you, and it is truly a great day for Iowa State University, for the horticulture department, for the faculty, the staff, and the students, for the Ames community, and for gardeners throughout Iowa and the Midwest, and for Iowa's growing horticultural industry. And also, if I could be partisan just for a minute, isn't this simply a great way to celebrate the Cyclones' upcoming victory over the Hawks? The Ryman Gardens cultivate in grand fashion and great splendor, really, almost 130 years of public gardening at Iowa State University. They are a fitting tribute to all of the gardens and the Iowa State horticulturalists that have gone before. Now, the first garden at Iowa State University was actually established in 1866 in the general location of Ross Hall and consisted of an experimental orchard, grapes, potatoes, root crops, flowers, and garden. Professor A.S. Welch, who was professor of landscape gardening at the time, formalized the planning of the campus to include the formal gardens during his tenure, at which he became president of Iowa State College. So we've had a horticulturist who's been president, President Jiske. Now, I don't have any aims on that, though. Following his appointment, he also arranged for the architect that designed Central Park in New York to develop the first campus plan, which is essentially in effect today. Now, the horticulture garden then was moved to the area occupied by the Quadrangle north of Old Botany in the late 1800s after the construction of Old Botany, which was completed in about 1893 and, as you know, is being redone today. In the early 1900s then, the garden was moved to the site of the present agronomy building and maintained in that location until the early 1950s. Professor Volz came to Iowa State in 1914 as professor of floriculture and was responsible for this horticultural garden. He initiated the floricultural breeding program, and later, as this was moved then to the new site in the early 50s, the site of Bessie Hall. And it remained in that location until the early 1960s. Now, one of Professor Volz's students was a man named Griffith Buck. And he became then professor in charge of the garden when it was moved to its old location north of the power plant. And he remained and the superintendent of the garden until his retirement. Professor Buck, of course, was a famous rose breeder, and many of the roses in the current Ryman Gardens from Buck are there today. Now, by the early 1960s, or the 1990s, I should say, 1990s, it was becoming obvious to the horticulture faculty that the horticulture garden would at some point in the future have to be moved because of its sort of less than desirable location, the ambiance created by all that coal dust and the electrical power generating plant and so on, and reports of expanding physical plant facilities. However, the 1990 plan to update the campus, the long-range plan, I don't think included moving the garden until perhaps the year 2015. Well, folks, I'm going to be retired long before then. Therefore, it really seemed, in spite of its long and distinguished history and to Iowa State University, that the garden would sort of disappear into history, disappear into oblivion. Now, we're going to have a sports event later, and I suppose all of you are sports fans. I was lucky. I'm a graduate of the University of Kentucky. My dad was a professor there. I saw 22 basketball All-Americans, 4 national championships. Then I went to Penn State, and under Joe Paterno, 2 national football titles. But the greatest moment I can remember, and each of you had this remembrance in sports, was when the U.S. hockey team won the 1980 Winter Olympics. And in part, that was made famous by Monday Night Football play-by-play announcer Al Michaels. Remember what he said? It was so emotional. Do you believe in miracles? The impossible dream come true. Well, the impossible dream did come true, and I do believe in miracles. And that came in the form, really, of two couples who came to the university with the first about the same time I did, in June 1991. Dr. Martin C. Jischke and his wife, Patty, joined the university as president and first lady. Now, the Jischkes were sensitive to the appearance of the campus, and I think it soon became obvious to both of them that the location of the horticulture gardens next to the physical plant was a little less than ideal. And secondly, their relocation to the grounds of the Iowa State Center would benefit both the Iowa State Center and horticultural education within the university. And then the second miracle happened. Roy and Bobby Ryman, two dedicated alumni of the university that had the vision to see, to know, and to understand what a facility of this quality and magnitude would have to the Iowa State Center, to Iowa State University, and to the citizens of Iowa. That was about 2.5 years ago, and now that vision has been translated into the reality that you see here today. The transformation from a grassy football field, a parking lot really, to what you see here today has been done with the generous gift of the Rymans and many other additional contributions from donors that are present here this morning, and a literal army of faculty, staff, students, designers, contractors, and volunteers who designed and built the Ryman Gardens. I can think of nothing in recent memory where the community and Iowa State University have been so intimately involved. And it will be our purpose to recognize some of those individuals today. Before we begin the recognition part of the program, I want you to gain a sense of the impact of the Ryman Gardens educational and outreach programs in the College of Agriculture. And to do that, I am pleased to introduce to you the Dean of the College of Agriculture, Dr. David Topol. Dr. Topol has been Dean of the college since 1988, and during that time has been a strong advocate for horticulture within the college and throughout the state. So to speak on the impact of the Ryman Gardens on the college's educational and outreach programs, I introduce Dr. David Topol.
Thank you, Dr. Chaplin. It's a great pleasure to say that we welcome you on this wonderful day. When it started to rain a little bit, I was quite worried. And then I saw our two famous fathers walk in, and as soon as they walked in, it stopped raining. So we thank you. Gosh, you couldn't have made a better contribution for a special day. It is a special day for the horticulture department, the students and faculty and staff, our college, Iowa State University, the Ames community, and truly the entire state of Iowa. This special education center is already having a significant impact on the quality of our teaching and the quality of our advising in the horticulture department, but also other colleges at Iowa State. Students are being taught in this garden this semester. Students from courses that are offered in liberal arts and sciences, the College of Design, as well as the College of Agriculture. And as time moves on, there'll be many, many more students learning from this wonderful facility. As we prepare for the 21st century, this garden and teaching facility will take us to another level that will make this university even more recognized around the world as a great center for horticulture. This tremendous tradition was started in the early 1900s when a professor named Dr. Beach started the American Society of Horticultural Science. And what could be more fitting than to have this road to my right named for this outstanding professor? A road named after Professor Beach that adjoins the Ryman Gardens. In continuing with this long-term tradition, we are here today also as part of the dedication of the Ryman Gardens to recognize another outstanding horticulturist, Dr. John Malstead. 60 years after Professor Beach started the American Society of Horticultural Science, Dr. Molstead became president of that American Society. The presidency of that society reflected his contributions and respect by horticulturists throughout the world. And I don't know what could be more fitting than to recognize Dr. Molstead for his tremendous contributions to horticulture and education than naming this outstanding education center in his honor. I'd also like to recognize at this time an individual that played an instrumental role in fundraising for this center, the Education Center, and that's Dwight Hughes. We did a little background work on Dwight and what stimulated him to work so hard to raise the funds for the Molstead Education Center. Well, I concluded it all boiled down to a few Sunday evening meals when Dwight was a student here at Iowa State University. It reflects Dr. Molstead's interest in students also, because when the cafeterias would close down Sunday evenings, Dr. Molstead would invite a few of the students out to his home for a Sunday evening meal. And Dwight managed to be invited a lot. That might be Dwight's initiative as well as Dr. Molstead's. But through that mentoring and continuing mentorship of Dr. Molstead on Dwight Hughes, Dwight is now recognized as one of our outstanding horticulturists in our state in the commercial industries. And through his help and leadership, we were able to obtain funds to construct the Molstead Education Center. The center means everything that John stood for and stands for today. More than just a horticulturist. John was an educator and a leader. He represented this university as the Big 8 representative for athletics to the NCAA for 17 years. And again, what could be more fitting than to have this outstanding education center named in his honor and have the athletic complex in its background? Somehow they just came together, John. So we thank you for your contributions, Dr. Molstead. We thank each of you that are here today who have been helpful in making this project possible, the Molstead Center and the Ryman Gardens. Your help and contributions are significantly appreciated. Thank you very much.
Now, growing horticultural crops was one of the major agricultural activities in Iowa in the early 1940s. Did you know that we were actually #1 apple producing state one time? Really, this until the early 1940s when the apple industry was lost due to a winter freeze and the onset of World War II. And then as the federal-backed commodity programs grew in Iowa, the horticultural production really began to decline, and it remained at a relatively low level until the 1980s. In the mid-1980s, however, the industry began to expand at a rapid pace, really from an $89 million industry in 1988 to a $475 million industry in 1992 by State Department of Ag Statistics, and this is an astounding 350% increase. Now, the Ryman Gardens are ideally positioned to serve Iowa's growing horticultural industries. Now, let me point out that this growth, it really mirrors the demographic trends in Iowa. Did you know that Iowa is rapidly urbanizing? It's in the paper almost every night. So that today, almost 2/3 of Iowa's population is classified as urban. Concurrent with this shift is a dramatically increasing need for extension and public service related to urban agriculture. So the Ryman Gardens really form the basis of an urban horticulture extension center. Housed within the Molstead building then will be the Master Gardener program, one of the most active and successful in the United States. We have trained over 2,000 citizens who now then serve really the extension service by manning telephones throughout the counties of Iowa. The Ryman Gardens also house the Hortline, which is the toll-free answer line. We answered about 17,000 calls this year from Iowans who called about horticultural questions. So all of these purposes, I think the Ryman Gardens will serve us quite well. Now, one person was largely responsible for assembling that army of community volunteers. Now, this person put in countless hours in garden-related meetings, ranging from publicity, solicitation of plant materials, meeting with potential donors, giving tours, developing, nurturing, and implementing the garden's auxiliary group, Ryman Gardens Cohorts. She was instrumental in the selection of this site and moving the old horticultural gardens from its dreadful old location. And she's one of the miracles that I spoke of earlier. In addition to being just a very nice person, she is a very knowledgeable horticulturalist and gardener. And as a matter of fact, she is the university's first gardener, Patty Jiske. Now, Patty is going to speak to you today about the Ryman Gardens Cohorts and the relationship of the Ryman Gardens to the Ames and Central Iowa communities. But before we let her do that, this is a surprise on the program. Before we let her do that, the faculty and I would like to express our deep appreciation to her by bestowing on her, this is the first and only time we've ever done this, the title of Honorary Master Gardener. I'm going to ask Linda Nave, statewide director of the Master Gardener program, to present Patty. So with that, I introduce you, Patty Jiske.
Well, thank you very much. I'm tremendously surprised. I've always aspired to be a master gardener, but they meet in the evening, so I have other things to do in the evening. Anyway, I wanted to speak about the Ryman Garden Cohorts. They are a Friends of the Garden group, a group of individuals who love gardens and gardening and who want to help these gardens succeed. The word cohort, as we learned from a Michael Gartner column, is derived from the same root word as the word horticulture. It seems that Roman soldiers used to be garrisoned in the walled gardens, or horticus, of civilians, and over time the soldiers became friends of the family, or cohorts. And I can think of no better word to describe garden friends. We are cohorts and we are soldiers of this garden, comrades and volunteer workers of these gardens. For an organization that's only been in existence for less than 3 months, the cohorts have had a phenomenal growth. Today we have about 250 members and have raised nearly $20,000. Our memberships range from a $10 student and master gardener level up to a very generous $1,000 level. These monies are annual monies given every year to help meet the needs of the garden, needs that the university can't or won't or maybe shouldn't even meet because of all the competing needs and claims on the public monies. But we who love the gardens and gardening and who are growing to love these Ryman Gardens truly want to help make them a special place. The cohorts do all sorts of things in support of the Ryman Gardens. The horticultural volunteers plant and water and weed and pinch and deadhead. And we give tours to large and small groups. We have brown bag lunches every Thursday at which experts speak on current gardening topics. Our first plant sale will be held in 2 weeks on Saturday, September the 30th. We're also planning special events, one soon for people with limited physical abilities, another called Sipping Cider to introduce friends to the gardens, and yet another workshop on decorating with evergreens. We cohorts have all different energy and strength levels, many different interests, many different skills. We're a very varied group. And let me say, if you haven't had a chance to join the cohorts yet, by all means, please do. You can give your money to our treasurer, Debbie Gitchell, who's way back there in the corner. Would you wave wildly? Yay, Debbie! Thank you. And let me say, without Debbie Gitchell, without her organizational skills, we probably wouldn't have a cohorts yet. She's wonderful, and I really sincerely thank you. And you can give me the money. You can give Murray Blackwelder the money. He will always take money. And Linda Nave, you saw Linda, and Nick Howell. There are a lot of, in fact, any of these people with the wonderful green shirts will take that money. So please join our cohorts and help us be the support group we would like to be. I have watched with amazement the growth of the Ryman Gardens. There's been such a marvelous confluence of efforts from so very many people, all working together so brilliantly. I've been extremely proud of the part that the cohorts have played. I've been proud of the enthusiastic help our cohorts have given. Our efforts have been significant and very necessary. And I would like to thank each and every one of you cohorts and volunteer workers who've helped. This has been really a very marvelous effort, and thank you. The Ryman Gardens have great significance to our community. They're comprised of places of beauty, places for quiet reflection, places to learn, places to stroll with friends, a place to celebrate important times in our lives, such as weddings and reunions, places to remember fragrances, flowers, and people of our pasts. These wonderful Ryman Gardens will become entwined in our lives, threads of enduring beauty. And speaking with the words of our beloved song, Bells of Iowa State, Roy and Bobby, of all of the green hills that comprise and enthrone our dear alma mater, this lovely hillside must be the greenest of the green hills. Martin often tells me universities are for the ages. This lovely Ryman Gardens, this greenest of the green hills, will endure throughout the ages. And we cohorts of the Ryman Gardens, thank you.
Well, it is now my great pleasure to introduce to you a strong supporter of the Ryman Gardens Project, the president of Iowa State University, Dr. Martin C. Jischke.
Thank you. Certainly a pleasure for me to be here, be a part of this official unveiling of Iowa State's newest landmark, one that I'm sure will grow on all of us. I knew I shouldn't have done that. We are delighted that so many of you are here. Governor, we're delighted you're with us on this happy occasion, members of the Board of Regents, Representative Nussel. It's good to have you with us here, sir. As you can see, this Ryman Garden affair is really a family affair for the Jischkes. Patty is an avid gardener. The very first thing she did when we came to Iowa State is start planting flowers over at the Knoll. We still have some boxes we haven't unpacked from the time we moved here. And she has come to this project with the remarkable enthusiasm that those of you who have gotten to know her know she has for most things in life. She's worked very hard on this project. There were days this summer I felt like a bachelor. She has done a remarkable job of recruiting literally hundreds of volunteers in the cohorts to do a variety of jobs at the garden, and I couldn't be more proud of her, although I must tell you I have been proud of her for a very long time. I'm also very grateful that she didn't volunteer me in July when it was very hot and very humid. The British poet Alfred Austin wrote, "Show me your garden and I'll tell you what you are." The Ryman Gardens are now the new front door of Iowa State University, and the message that this garden sends is very clear. It is a very powerful message. It is a message of a very proud institution. It is a message of an institution with a remarkable history and remarkable traditions, an institution that is incredibly proud of its role, its pioneering role as a land-grant university. Iowa's richness, its history, its culture, its values, in a very profound sense, have their roots in the soil of this land. And our gardens tell people who and what we are. The Ryman Gardens also sends a message that this is an institution that its alumni and friends care deeply about, so much that they are willing to give of themselves, their resources very generously to ensure that these kinds of traditions are both established and carry on. I think everyone will agree that it is exciting to be part of the renewal of a cherished Iowa State tradition, horticulture. Many of us felt that excitement a year ago when we rededicated the Stanton Memorial Carillon and the Campanile, and we feel it yet again today in the dedication of these Ryman Gardens. I believe as we renew and build these kinds of traditions, we strengthen the university and we strengthen it and its spirit. Like so many other building or refurbishing projects on the campus, these gardens are made possible because of the generous support of Iowa State University alumni and friends. This has been particularly true of the Ryman Gardens. These gardens are truly a community project. They have been funded by donations. There were no state appropriations for this project. Literally hundreds of contributions have come from individuals, from corporations, from garden clubs, from organizations. They are really too numerous to mention here, but I would encourage you to see the donor book located in the Malstead building. It chronicles the remarkable number of people who have contributed to the establishment of these gardens. The striking limestone and wood building at my back and in front of you here at the Ryman Gardens is named, as you have heard, for a very special member of the Iowa State University family, someone who is very well known at Iowa State and by horticulturalists all over this state, maybe all over this nation. John Malstead was a member of the horticulture faculty at Iowa State for 36 years, including 6 years as department chair, 8 years as the associate director of the experiment station, and 12 years as associate dean of the College of Agriculture. His great many friends, former students, and associates have honored John by raising funds to name the Horticulture Learning Center in his honor. John, would you please come up here? I want to give you a little present. We have a special gift for you. Picture of that.
I had one for you, but it didn't come through. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, one of Dr. Malstead's former students, as you have heard, is primarily responsible for organizing this tribute and raising the funds for this building. I would first like Dwight Hughes and his family to stand first. Dwight, where are you and your family? Come on, all of them, please. Please. And I would like Dwight to come up here for just a second. Dwight, as you have heard, is a Cedar Rapids nurseryman, a very active ISU alum, and known literally around the country for his very progressive practices in the nursery business. Dwight has been a remarkable fundraiser in this effort, and I have at times wondered whether we could talk him out of the nursery business and perhaps joining us in our foundation. I don't think that's possible. But he has worked untiringly. He has been dedicated to John and this project, and it's only because of him that it succeeded. He is so persuasive that your speaker is one of the donors to the Malstead building.
Congratulations.
Come here, we got two things for you. One's a letter from me thanking you, and a picture of the building. Thank you. As you have seen, the Ryman Gardens have been made possible by a remarkable collection of people contributing resources, time, energy, enthusiasm. But no group is closer to this project than Roy and Bobby Ryman and their children and families. And I would like the families to please stand when I read their names. They're all here. Davy and Joni Ryman Bledsoe, John and Julie Ellis, and John's parents, Dean and Judy Ellis, Jeff and Cindy Lambert, Scott Ryman, Taryn Ryman, and Rick and Lori Rosman and their children Ryan and Kristen. I also want to recognize some special close friends, family friends of the Rymans who are also with us today, Norbert and Dorothy Whittle, and Mike and Sharon Hipp. All of the members of the Ryman family, all of the members have contributed to the gardens, and their names are prominent on benches and artwork throughout the gardens. I would encourage you to notice these special touches as you stroll through the gardens. Thank you to all of you and welcome. It's now my pleasure to introduce the two people whose generosity, whose love of this university, whose vision for a beautiful horticulture garden have made today and this new campus addition possible. To quote a verse